This is episode 2 of Out of the Rotation, like Carmelo Anthony. I'm your host, Millsy. Coach Rose couldn't be here with us for this episode. He'll be back for the next one. Too busy trying to win a ring for him and the varsity team at Coney Island Prep in Brooklyn. Gonna have a relatively short episode for you. It's not gonna be 40 minutes to an hour, probably about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I'm gonna touch a little bit on the Warriors, the Raptors, Celtics, Clippers, and the Thunder. And then at the end of the show, we'll do the MVP of the month, Coach of the month, and Team of the month. I also have Coach Rose's picks for those. First up, we talk a little bit about the Warriors. Went 12-3 in November. Back atop the West. We're so accustomed to seeing them being. Finally getting healthy. Got Steph Curry back. Got Draymond back. KD was kind of hitting his stride. He went berserk for a couple games there when Steph and Draymond were sidelined. Clay had a couple big games. So I honestly think Steph being out and Draymond being out kind of helps this team a little bit, only because you know what Draymond's bringing to the team. You know Draymond's bringing hustle, rebounds. He can handle the rock. He could pass the rock. Potential triple double on any night. He's got to improve a little bit better from three. I think he's gotten worse. Like I remember when he first started, when Draymond bursted on the scene. He was never like a 40% 3-point shooter, but I don't remember him being like 30% or 29%. I thought he was a little better than that. But yeah, so with Draymond, you know what you're getting, and then with Steph, you know what you're getting. Now, shooters, it's going to take a little bit for Steph to get, I think, into back into the swing of things and get back into a full rhythm. He's the best shooter in the world. It could obviously not take him as long, but we've seen him already. He's had a couple big games since he's been back. So, but then last game he goes out and shoots 2 of 8 or 2 of 10, 2 of 12, something like that. So he's still. That bad of a game we're not used to seeing Curry have, but those two, you know what you're getting, and a couple more reps in practice and pregame warm ups, a couple more games, and I think that shot will continue to fall for Steph and fall at a higher clip. But it's good because KD gets to get in a rhythm. Clay gets to find his stroke. Remember how bad he was in the beginning of the year, and we're talking about what a terrible shooter he is, and how not a terrible shooter overall, but how bad he is shooting, and comparing his numbers to end of the out of the rotation guys, comparing his numbers to people like that. So it's good. He gets back in the swing of things. KD gets back in the swing of things. They get to like I said, find their rhythm, and whereas with Draymond and Steph, a little bit more what you're gonna get, and I think pretty soon we're gonna see them go on a real big stretch, like I don't know, something like a 22 wins and like 3 losses or something crazy like that. Maybe even rattle off 20 straight, something like that, and they're gonna get Boogie back. Now there's conflicting reports as to when. Or conflicting ideas as to when he's going to be back. Some people say, Christmas is a realistic expectation for him, whereas, now I read somewhere that February could possibly be when he's coming back. So, when they get DeMarcus Cousins back, obviously it's going to take him a bit to get back into the swing of things and get back into a rhythm and find himself and trust himself coming back from injury. Probably have a lot of nights off, especially on back-to-backs, give him a lot of rest. But think about that, DeMarcus Cousins in the playoffs with this team, and he'll be coming back at a time where, the rest of the team is they haven't completely gelled yet. So, while the pieces are still meshing, that's why I think the sooner he gets back, the better. You don't want to rush somebody back from an Achilles injury. I'm not saying he should be back now, but if doctors clear him for Christmas, he should play, on Christmas. He doesn't have to go out there and play 30 minutes. He doesn't have to go out there and play 20 minutes. You could go out, put him out for 12 minutes, 10 minutes, just something to get his feet wet. And then, depending on how he feels from that, then you go from there. Is it, because I just think that extra 2 months of basketball from December, or the half of February, all of January, and some of December of him sitting out another 2 months gives that team more time to gel. And then when trying to insert a piece such as DeMarcus Cousins when a team is fully gelled, it may not go so well. Now the only thing is, he is coming back from serious injury, so the expectations I think he has for himself aren't too high. He is trying to land himself a big contract and a long-term contract, but I think the main thing is to prove to himself too that he's fully back, and then try to focus on that season alone. Don't even look ahead to contracts, off-season playoffs. Don't even look at that. Just game by game. And I think that's how they should take it with him, especially in the beginning, in terms of when to rest him, when to play him. Steve Kerr's great, though. The Warriors, it's an NBA team. They have one of the best, medical staffs in the entire world. So, they know what to do with him, and they'll handle it correctly. But moving on from the Warriors to the Raptors, still the best team in basketball, top seed in the East, obviously. This is one team that's really surprised me. Now, I didn't think that the Raptors were going to be bad by any means. I'm not saying that, but best team in basketball, that's a bit of a stretch, especially when you have a piece such as DeMar DeRozan leaving and a piece of Kawhi coming in. Now, a piece such as Kawhi coming in, Kawhi is not a guy who needs 30 shots a night. He makes his impact on both sides of the floor. But the way that, him and Lowry together has been absolutely incredible. The way that they've meshed and how seamless it's been. I honestly, watching them, it seems like Kawhi's been there for the past 3-4 years. It makes you forget about him even playing on San Antonio just because of how good and how comfortable he looks under Nick Nurse and with this Raptors squad. Now, they have some really solid pieces. I like Siakam a lot. Serge Ibaka's, Serge Ibaka, and he's playing better than he did last year. He has a little, I'd say his usage is up, but he has a little bit more of a prominent role as opposed to last year. He's playing about 28 to 30 minutes a night, so Nick Nurse has the confidence in him as opposed to Dwayne Casey, who'd kind of fluctuate his minutes on nights. Now, he's still matchup based. Some nights JV still starts, but Serge is still getting his 28 to 30 minutes a night. There were times under Dwayne Casey he'd only play 22 minutes. And then Kyle Lowry's still playing at a high level. One luxury the Raptors have had has been able to rest Kawhi or keep Kawhi out until he's back to 100% or 90%, the closest to 100 he can get. Because they're winning when he's out with Lowry. This team defensively is incredible. And offensively, they get so many open looks and so many looks around the basket. That's one thing I've noticed a lot about the Raptors is there's so many layups, so many dunks. Now OG Anunoby, I'm not saying he's going out there putting up 20 points a night. Obviously, he's not. But I feel like every time Anunoby actually scores, it's like on a fast break dunk, or it's on he beats his man backdoor and he gets a dunk. That's one thing I've noticed about Siakam too, is he gets a ton of looks from just constantly moving. We used to see Rip Hamilton do it back in the day with the Pistons. Impossible, make yourself impossible to guard. And then you think about it, if I'm tired, just think of how tired this guy is chasing me, trying to keep up with me all day. You know what I mean? So I'm sorry, I'm just seeing I just saw when Jordan slapped Malik Monk on the back of the head the 2 times. I saw something earlier. Some people had been, people had thought it was too much, or that, were like, I don't care who you are, don't touch me. Other people were like, we don't know their relationships, so we don't know, the context and whatnot. And that's how I feel about it. I mean, the way Monk reacted, it looked like he turned around, he was laughing and playing with them, playfully, joking with them. So I don't see any problem with it. But back to the Raptors. Who knows? Maybe some of that MJ shooting touch will, rub off on Malik Monk after that slap. But the Raptors get a ton of look around the basket, and that's the bit. They don't force things. They don't have selfish players. They don't have these one-on-one ISO players who are taking 15 dribbles up at the top of the key and then settling for a step back fadeaway 3. So like they're always getting good looks, and you got to credit Nick Nurse for that. You have to credit Kyle Lowry as the point guard, and Kawhi Leonard, because Kawhi's not coming in. He's not forcing up 30 shots a night, 25 shots a night, and he's trusts the guys around him already, which is big for somebody of Kawhi's stature. A big name player, star player. And then how well they've meshed defensively. They know where they're supposed to be at all times. Very rarely do you see the Raptors give up an easy basket or an easy layup or a wide open dunk. They're playing really good team basketball, and you really have to credit Nick Nurse for getting them to play at that level and getting them to be able to mesh this early. Considering this is you're bringing in a piece such as Kawhi Leonard that's such a high usage player and demands so much respect from opposing teams and whatnot, and then trying to insert him in correctly, it's been seamless for them. So that definitely credit to Nick Nurse. And they're just an unselfish team. They get the best look. They're not full of like last season when they had DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan was much more of an ISO player, and as we know, isn't much of a 3-point shooter. Well, Kawhi's a much better 3-point shooter than DeRozan is. And he's a bit more unselfish than DeRozan is. Now, DeRozan, as we see in San Antonio, is a little bit of a better passer than he was being used, or a better passer than he showed in Toronto. But when you have Kyle Lowry, that's your point guard. That's who's going to be handling the rock most of the time. And DeRozan at the 2, not running as much point under Dwayne Casey. So, seeing that trust that Kawhi has and seeing the trust that the whole team has in one another to get the best possible look and get the best shot, and then on defense to know your rotations, know where you're supposed to be. It's been a joy to watch. It's been fun to watch. Moving on to the Clippers. If you're a Clippers fan, you might want to skip over this or if you're a Doc Rivers fan, you might want to skip over this. I'm really questioning how good of a coach Doc is, and I mean that's a little crazy to say and a little, dramatic to say, a little drastic, but what is he doing with this Avery Bradley nonsense? Now I understand right now because Lou Williams is out, but Avery Bradley on the season is. We put up a tweet the other day on the Nosebleed section through the Twitter. You can go visit, go on to Twitter and go to @TNBS021, and there's a tweet that talks about Avery Bradley's plus minus in the Clippers wins and losses, and he was like a minus 28 or no, I'm sorry. I don't know. It was something crazy, but he was like it was a big time minus in their losses. Oh no, that's what it was. I'm sorry. In the games, they were 5-3 or 5-2 in the games that he played 30 minutes or less, and they were. Oh no, I'm sorry. Got it backwards. They were 2-5 in games that he played 30 minutes or more, and then they were something like 4-1 in games that he had played 20 minutes or under 30 minutes. So it's like look at the record and look at the plus minus, and the guy's shooting 20-30% from the field every night. His defense is overrated at this point. He's not the player that he was back in Boston, and I'm not ripping Avery Bradley right now. I honestly believe that injuries have sapped Avery Bradley. I remember when he was back with Boston, every single night Avery Bradley was questionable and then went out and played 36 to 38 minutes in that game. And there was a lot of leg injuries, a lot of ankles, a lot of, I believe, knee issues. And that wears on a player, especially when you're playing through it. It just doesn't heal right. So, I think a lot of his issues is that he's been sapped and then a new scheme fit. I think he was perfect in Boston. Like, that was the perfect home for him. The fans loved him. He loved it. He was comfortable. And then he gets traded by them. I'm not saying he has a fragile mind. I don't think anybody in the NBA that plays at the NBA level has a fragile mind state. But I think he felt hurt by it and fragile in that sense that, like, 100% of Avery Bradley didn't, or 100% of Avery Bradley was in Boston with the Celtics. I don't think 100% of Avery Bradley is in LA with the Clippers. That's the best way to put it, because, and that may, that includes injury, that includes him feeling hurt or betrayed or still, missing Boston or the fact that Boston just elevated his play, whatever it may be. I don't think 100% of him is in LA. But Doc Rivers continues to play him these big minutes, and the Clippers are they're fading. They were up top the West now. Obviously, it's not sustainable, but they were atop the West, and literally the one seed for almost a month, if not longer than a month. And he goes to start, playing Avery Bradley 30 minutes a night, playing Martian Gortat almost 20 minutes a night. This is Gortat's openly said that he would retire now if he could, or something with the contract thing. But he's ready to find a beach somewhere and post up there. He does not want to be playing basketball right now. Why not go to Boban? I understand there's certain matchups where Boban just is not. You can't play him. Like, I would play him in short spurts against a team like the Lakers or Houston, but I mean those are the kind of matchups where you don't play him. Like, you could give him a run, a couple minutes, see how he does. If he's struggling, bang, pull him, quick hook, don't play him the rest of the game. But I mean, there are a lot of teams where I think you could play him against, and I think he should play especially over Martian Gortat. And I think they need a little more Montrezl Harrell. I know Harrell's play has slipped a little bit of late, and I'm not sure exactly why. He is getting a little less minutes, but he's an energy guy. He's a guy who he's going to rebound. He's going to do the little things, and he brings a ton of passion and heart. Now, I personally don't think that Montrezl Harrell is long term a 35, 36, 37 minute a night guy. I think he's more in the 25 to 30 minute range a night. I think right now he can play that, and I think there are nights he can play that. I just don't think he can do that for the duration of a season. He just brings so much energy and so much It's hard to do that for 82 games over the course of a season for 30 minutes a game. But I would like to see them use with this team. He fits so well, so I think he does need more minutes with this team. He is pretty defensive minded. No, he can't step out and shoot, but none of the Clippers bigs can. Gortat can't shoot. Boban's not a shooter. Harrell's not a shooter. I know that they play Gallinari a bit at the 5, and that's fine. You want to go small, that's by all means. Gallinari is 6'10". He's going to pull opposing centers away from the basket, leaving the paint wide open. I get it. And that's fine, but when you're playing a team, use the Lakers for example. If you're playing the Lakers and JaVale McGee's starting the game, you can start Harrell against McGee as opposed to Martian Gortat against McGee. So I don't understand why Gortat's really playing the amount of minutes he is, or even at all. I think, and I just can't. It makes no sense to me as to why he's playing Gortat as much as he does. Avery Bradley, I understand a little bit more because of injuries, and he still does play pretty solid defense. But Patrick Beverley's minutes have been on the decline. In the beginning of the season, Patrick Beverley's minutes were on the rise, where Patrick Beverley was playing heavy minutes, whereas Bradley wasn't really playing at all, and that's what the Clippers were in first place. Now they switched. Bradley's playing more minutes, Beverley's playing less, and now they're starting to fall back to earth. I thought it was going to be regardless, but I think this has something to do with a bit of the coaching too. That and the fact that Tobias Harris has obviously fallen off of his pace a bit. But there's too many games where Tobias Harris isn't shooting enough. Too many games where this is why he's not at that superstar level, because he doesn't have it night in and night out. He doesn't have that consistency. He's a little too streaky of a player. There's times where he can disappear during games for long periods of stretches. I think just the other night he finished with something like 12 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. Now, it's not a bad game for somebody who's coming off the bench playing 20, 25 minutes, but not for somebody, not your anchor, not the guy who's, your best player on your team. I just don't, to me, it just doesn't, I don't understand what Doc Rivers is doing or why he's continuing to do the same thing. I mean, isn't that the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and hoping for a different result? Maybe Doc Rivers has gone insane. Who knows? Next up, the Thunder, though. Now, this has been a hell of a team. Now, the Thunder have been fun to watch. They've been really fun to watch. Obviously, Russ, he missed some time early in the season. Birth of his twin daughters, sprained his ankle against the Pelicans. Nasty ankle sprain. He only missed about a week or two from that. But now they're fully healthy. Hamidou Diallo had a scary fall. He's back. I believe Abrinas is back. The only one they're without right now is Roberson, who I believe had a setback and may not play until possibly around the playoffs, which would be a huge loss for them. That's I don't remember exactly what happened with the setback. I just remember seeing that he had a setback, which I think that hurts them a bit in terms of potential playoff runs. I think he's that important. He's a guy who can hit down, he can hit the three, especially the corner threes, but a great defender and somebody that he runs the floor. He's good next to Paul George and Russ because he doesn't demand the ball. He doesn't need a ton of shots. So keep an eye out and see what happens to him, especially if you're a Thunder fan. Thunder up. Another person though for the Thunder who's been impressive to me a player who's been impressive to me is Dennis Schroeder. I liked him a lot in Atlanta. I think this is the perfect role for him because to me and Coach Rose had actually gotten back and forth about this in the past. Is Schroeder actually a starter? Is he really a starting point guard in the NBA? And I think Coach Rose had even said that he's a perfect off the bench high minutes guy. Meaning he's not a starter, but he's an impactful player where he's going to finish games and he's going to play 30 minutes a night. So he may not necessarily start and get that title, but he's in there finishing games or he's in there in big situations. He shot the three a little better than he has in the past so far this year, which is what you want and need next to Russ. But one thing that he gives them is someone else who can create with the ball next to Russ. So not just Paul George. Now Paul George is a great ISO player. Paul George is a great team player. But Schroeder kind of takes a load off of Russ where, he gives them that extra player that can create for himself or create from others. So now if Russ is in the game, you could flip Russ to two guard to kind of give him a little bit of an in-game break without having to take him out of the game, during the playoffs I'm talking, or a big game, a game they want to win, playoff seeding, whatever it may be. They can play Russ at the two guard, give him a bit of a break in that, a break by playing the two guard, not having to bring the ball up every time, not having to attack every time. And then Schroeder can create. He can do a lot of the things Russ can do in the sense of within the Thunder offense. So he can create for others. He can create for himself. He can shoot the three. He's actually a better three-point shooter than Westbrook is this year. So he's a perfect fit next to him, and he gives Billy Donovan options. Now he's not the best defender, but he's good with steals, and he's actually really good at taking charges. He flops and he sells calls a lot. Schroeder's been great, a great addition. Paul George has been incredible. I was kind of flip-flopping on who I picked for MVP of the month, and Paul George. I thought Paul George has played that great this month for the Thunder. They went 12-3 in November, and Russ missed some of that time. So it was I had a tough time going with who I did over him, but that's how good Paul George has played this month. In fact, I'm not going to be able to find it. That was a while ago. The numbers from Paul George against Brooklyn, I had tallied them up, and I'd send them to Coach Rose. We were talking. We were watching the game and watched them go off, and it was something like 27 points in the fourth quarter, or in the final 3 minutes or 4 minutes, something crazy. And they were losing too, and they came back and won because of that. So the Thunder are on the rise. I think they're a really strong team. I believe they're. Don't quote me on this, but I think they're the best defensive team, or the best defensive team in the West, or the best defensive team in the NBA. I can't remember exactly which, but they've been very stingy on defense. And again, the person who's holding it down, I haven't mentioned him yet, but Steven Adams, quietly, averaging a double double, quietly putting up 17 points, 12 rebounds, 2 blocks, lockdown defense in the middle, protecting the rim well. I really like their makeup of their team, and credit Billy Donovan for making the switch. And I'm one to rip Billy Donovan. I don't think he's been that great of a coach. I think, I still don't think he's that, there's still some changes he could make, but, I have to, we have to take into consideration Roberson is still out. So, and, he can't, Diallo's still a rookie, but he's shown well. Abrinas is a solid shooter, but and he tries defensively, but he's not as good as a defender as Terrence Ferguson is, who's a little more athletic, but isn't as good of a shooter. So it's like they kind of have a lot of pieces that have different strengths that don't necessarily fit at all times with the lineup. So I do credit him for taking Patrick Patterson out of the starting lineup and putting in Jeremy Grant. That's part of the reason why the Thunder have gone on this run. Jeremy Grant can flat out ball. I think he needs a couple more shots a game, though, personally. But you see why teams were so high on him. First of all, he's got bungees. He can jump. He can flat out jump, and his 3-point shots come along quite a bit. He's actually a good 3-point shooter now, and is a legit threat from out there. Matchup nightmare at the 4 because he's so athletic. He can defend the 3. He can defend the 4. He can switch with them, and he can defend the 5. Even he fits perfect next to Russ, Paul George, and Steven Adams. So I credit Billy Donovan for making the switch. And finally, the Celtics. They're I don't know. There's something about the Celtics that they just don't look right still. Obviously, there's still pieces out. They haven't been fully healthy this year. They've been dealing with some injuries. This guy's, they get their full lineup for a game, 2 games. Next thing you know, this person's hurt, this person's hurt, this person's hurt. But I think it's at the point where they just have so many mouths to feed. It's too many mouths to feed that it's hurting them. Kyrie's taking a decent amount of shots now, which that's how it needs to be. Kyrie needs to leads that team in shots every night, in my opinion. Number 2 needs to be Tatum, just because of Tatum isn't a guy who settles for bad shots, which is something you rarely see in someone of his age. I think he's 20, 21. Very poised, very under control, understands how to play the game, doesn't force, fits within the system. So very athletic too. So opens up backdoor play. Just so many possibilities with Tatum and Kyrie together. So I think that needs to be 1-2 in terms of shots. And then I personally would like to see Gordon Hayward being a bit more trigger happy as well and taking a bit more shots a game too. I like Gordon Hayward. I think Gordon Hayward just, like I said, needs a couple more shots a game and to stay involved in the game. And what I mean by that is rebound. He's a good defender, and he's still getting the steals and the blocks. But I'd like to see him just a little bit more involved at times in terms of, like I said, rebounding or passing and setting teammates up. And then you got Marcus Morris and Terry Rozier coming off the bench. Marcus Rozier, imagine that. Marcus Morris in particular I think has been the most important outside of Kyrie and Tatum. Marcus Morris has been the most important piece for this team. He can slot in at the small forward or the power forward. When Horford's been out, they'll start Baines, and Marcus Morris is getting more minutes. He can start for Hayward when Hayward's out at the 3. So he's been very valuable for them. I just think there's a bit too much there, too many mouths to feed, and it's a challenge for Brad Stevens to figure it out. And I credit him. He's got them on track now. They're locked down defensively. They give up the second fewest points allowed in the Eastern Conference, the second fewest points allowed behind Indiana. Celtics are giving up 102. Indiana's giving up 101. So their defense is playing. You know, their defense is strong. So they're not. I just can't put I can't quite figure it out. I can't put there. Just something is off about them. They're not quite there yet, and it could just be that the East has improved and the Raptors are that much better. The 76ers are better. Yeah, maybe it's been a tough schedule to start the season, or and the injuries have still impacted them. And maybe it's similar to the Warriors situation where they're getting healthy at the right time. The Celtics are on the rise right now. They're starting to get going, and they're getting healthy. Kyrie's back. Tatum's back. Hayward was back playing well. I think he had a 30 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists game recently. So I play a lot of DraftKings, so I know a lot of fantasy points. Like Kevin Durant went on a stretch in when Steph and Draymond were out, where he put up something crazy. It was like 71 DraftKings points, 60, 68, 71, 71, something crazy like that. And it was a 4-game stretch. So I don't remember exact stat lines. I remember fantasy points when they have crazy nights. Like tonight on James Harden, 86 and a half DraftKings fantasy points. Hope you played them. But yeah, so the Celtics, they're getting going. That's going to about do it. We're going to jump to the MVP, coach, and team of the months. I'm going to start with Coach Rose's. First up, his MVP is Giannis. Giannis still playing, still holding it down for Milwaukee, and Milwaukee's struggling a little bit right now in terms, and what I mean, Chris Middleton's not playing very well right now. He's even seen a drastic decline in minutes at times. They just made a couple trades, picked up George Hill. So I understand Giannis because he's literally holding that team together. So Giannis is his MVP. His team of the month is OKC. Hard to argue with that. Like we said, went 12-3 in November. And his coach of the month is Mike Malone. And one thing he pointed out about Mike Malone was, and why Mike Malone is his coach of the month, is that he's got Denver right up there. They're fourth or fifth in the West, I believe. Yeah, third, fourth, or fifth, somewhere around there. But they're riddled with injuries right now. Will Barton's out. Gary Harris is out. Paul Millsap got hurt. He's out. So there's probably even missing somebody. So there's a ton of injuries right there right now. But he's still, this speaks on their depth as well. But he's got them still playing good basketball. And something I actually had written about in my the most dangerous team in the NBA, Denver Nuggets, an article over on thenosebleedsack.com. Check it out. Talks about their depth and how they have so many pieces that seamlessly fit and they could play that positionless basketball. Two of those players, Juancho Hernan-Gomez and Trey Lyles, who have been stepping up in big time recently since Paul Millsap has gone down. But Mike Malone being able to do that and have those players ready and have them fit in like that, it does say a lot about the coach he is. And they're, people, I'm sure you've heard this all the time, but Boogie Cousins doesn't get along with many people, especially coaches. And Boogie Cousins loved Mike Malone. So, to me it says players coach, and obviously he's got them playing well still. For me, my MVP is Russell Westbrook. I flip back and forth between Russ and Paul George. I definitely wanted to go with someone on OKC because to me they've been the best team of the month. I know the Raptors have the best record in basketball. The Warriors were 12-3. The Thunder were 12-3. But I thought OKC was stronger than the Warriors were in November. Russ was a plus 18 for the month. Or excuse me, his plus minus is he was a plus 18 for the month of November, and he averaged a triple double. Now, Paul George played excellent, extraordinary defense. He had a game where he dropped 27 minutes, or 27 points in the final 3 minutes or 4 minutes, something like that. So it says a lot about how good Paul George and Russ Westbrook play together, and I don't think we're gonna have that clash in OKC with the way we did with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. But so yeah, Russ was my MVP. My coach of the month was Nick Nurse. He could make a case for Billy Donovan, sure, but I just to have the Raptors are absolutely. I'm floored by the Raptors. I'm so impressed by the Raptors this season. As I said earlier, just so many, such a young team, and to be playing the way they did, and the confidence, it's incredible. Nick Nurse has got them boys balling. And my team of the month, not going to be much different from Coach Rose's. Sorry, got to go OKC. Like we had mentioned, 12-3 in the month of November. Yeah, Thunder up. We'll, as I said, we'll get Coach Rose back on episode 3. If you have any topics you want us to cover or anything you want to hear, feel free to reach out. You can talk to us on Twitter at Millsy021, at @THA_business, at TNBS021. If you like boxing, you can follow at Nikki B4Prez. Big time boxing fan, knows his stuff. He's been heavy into boxing his entire life. He is a pro boxer. He also has a podcast called Center Ring with Nick Baez. Be sure to check that out. There's about 4 episodes. Great podcast, absolutely great. Nick knows his stuff. He's funny. Knows what I'm not just saying that because he's part of TNBS and a close friend, but it really is a good podcast, especially if you're a boxing fanatic. If you're a boxing head, definitely check it out. It's called Center Ring with Nick Baez. We'll be back with episode 3 of Out of the Rotation next month, sometime in early January, and Coach Rose will be back on that one. For the Nosebleed section, I'm Millsy.